if you can find out what you love doing, and see if that really resonates with you, and find your why, find your true north. And I think that's such an incredible privilege that sets you up for life if you can find that at a young age. And it's not just a career, it's like deeply in your soul, like, what is your purpose for existence?
Welcome again to the show. My name is Maynard, and here we talk about how to build a meaningful career, do work that matters most to you, especially for those of us who work in the creative industries, do so full time and make a living out of it. And today, I'm super privileged to have on the show Rajesh. I met Rajesh first when I was speaking at TEDx Pretoria. We were both speakers on the roster there. I was super impressed, not just by his talk, but also just about his openness, about his warm personality, and how he super meaningfully just connected with everybody there, including myself. So just a little bit about Rajesh. He is the founder and CEO of Resolute Education. We're going to be talking about that a little bit in a moment. He graduated from University of Pretoria, edtech, me as well, in 2016 with an honors in electronic engineering, but has become ever since an avid education enthusiast, teaching mathematics to high school students throughout his studies, and has been building his career on that, along with technology, in the time since that. With his passion for people and education, Rajesh endeavored to help better equip students for life after high school, and to just foster this ever-growing passion for robotics and programming from a young age by introducing students to industry-relevant skills. Now, Rajesh has talked a lot to me in the past about Resolute, and I would love to get to that very soon and just talk about how all of that works. But I think for now, what has been fascinating, first of all, welcome, Rajesh. I'm so glad, before I jump into a question, I'm so glad to have you. Welcome on the show.
Thanks, Maynard. Great to be here. Thank you for having me. I love the
So I think that,
I love the bio readings, but I think love like I always think like the best way to interest someone is some more realistic facts, like he thinks he's an athlete, loves running, loves watching The Office. A little bit more down to
oh
earth
my
facts, but
goodness.
absolutely.
Okay, no. That's we'll get to all of those things, and you're welcome to spice them in our conversation as we go through. I think the first thing that I wanted to just throw your way was that, of course, with me being a content creator and online educator, but also working with technology, it's fascinating to see somebody like yourself making a living, bringing those two industries together in super meaningful ways. Education on the one hand, and being right on the bleeding edge of technology on the other hand. For me, that's the dream. It's to work in those two areas in a way that brings those two areas beautiful together. But just talk to me a little bit. What has your experience been working with one foot in the educational industry and another foot in the technology industry? What has been some of the tensions, some of the opportunities? Has it all been awesome, or has there been very real challenges? Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at the space of edtech, with the rise of technology, there's a lot of industries that have now been able to scale a lot better and a lot quicker by using tech. So you'll see tech being used with fintech, prop tech, so property tech, ed tech, health tech, and agri-tech. So a lot of these traditional industries that were so localized, when they look at starting to grow, the only way that you can actually grow and scale across borders is through technology. And so it's kind of a thing that's slapped at the end of your industry to say, I'm not just a localized offering, I'm here to scale, and I'm using tech to kind of scale it across borders. So education is very interesting. I think for very long in our lives, information was held very closely, and it was a privilege, and it was in the most prestigious circles. If you look back in the BC days, and as it's been even over the past couple of centuries, and with the advancements of tech, it's now start to spread with a lot more people who have access to it, and now it's become kind of a right for a human to have access to schooling and education and knowledge, whereas previously it wasn't like that. So for me, when I look at the edtech space, it's very much there's two parts of edtech. I always say if education is on one end of the spectrum and tech is on the other end of the spectrum. For example, there are some systems like school information systems that capture school reporting, or cybersecurity networks, so school infrastructure. Those are more on the tech side of things. Whereas, say, traditional schooling, opening up schools and tutoring centers and operational stuff as education, edtech is like a hybrid between the two. So for me, Resolute, or what I do, is quite in the edtech, is because we have created a pedagogically sound curriculum, which is full on education. And now we're looking at it to how can we deliver this better to our audience, and how can we look at it scaling it using technology, which brings in the aspect of technology. So it's quite a nice pivotal point. I think we would start from an education side, use tech to leverage it, rather than develop a tech product and kind of integrate it for an education cause, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And I like what you're saying about how technology uses traditional or leverages traditional sectors to be able to scale, just roll that out to a bigger audience. All right. So, I mean, we're going to be talking about that in a couple of minutes, but I mean, for now, just tell us your story. Tell us a little bit about how has your journey been since either university or wherever you want to start up until now? And how did you get, what has been some of the key decisions and trajectories that brought you to this specific point? And then if you want, just end off with, tell us a little bit about what Resolute is about and what a day in the life looks like for yourself.
Absolutely. I think from when I was in high school, a pivotal, I think, desire in my heart, I would say, was always in some sort of way of helping people. So having a social impact was something that just resonated with me. Maybe it was just my upbringing, and I thought the only way I could do that was by becoming a doctor. Right? That's the most important way, and becoming a doctor is kind of the best way that we could achieve it. And so throughout high school, I thought I wanted to be a doctor for that reason, and kind of as going through not getting into medicine, which is quite a very difficult feat to achieve. You need your 9 A's and you need to be incredibly hardworking and disciplined. I was quite despondent. I didn't really know what I wanted to get into. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Serving people and doing social work revolves so much around medicine and this thing that I've created in my mind. And then when I got to university, I did electronic engineering, which isn't bad, which is amazing. It was pretty much an option that was picked for me from my dad, maybe from a very Indian background. You either do medicine or engineering. And so when I got in, I didn't know the power of education at all. So someone just said, hey, could you come tutor my son mathematics? You did really well in school. So I went and I tutored, and that was probably the most pivotal moment, I would say, in my life, is when I started explaining concepts and unpacking these things, maybe from a mathematical perspective that came quite easy to me, that didn't for some of the students I was teaching. I realized I actually love education and I love teaching. And so my whole entire university career was dedicated, and that's what got me through electronic engineering, not the love for electrical circuits and programming. Was I tutored over 500 students. I tutored all around the schools. I had held summer clubs, and I absolutely loved it. And I realized, for me, my why very much became that core of helping people was still at the center of it, but the outlet wasn't a direct relief kind of a help through medicine, but it was more a with an education mindset, which is a long-term play of really equipping people for life, a little bit of a longer-term play. So that's where I kind of find my passion, and kind of looking at the journey going from engineering, and then while I was doing my honors, I could do it in the evening school. So during the day, I got to one of the schools that I was tutoring a lot that asked me to be a high school teacher. So being opportunity to actually go teach them, seeing firsthand experiencing the school from a teacher perspective and from a school perspective rather than a tutor perspective, that's hearing a perspective from parents and students, was so critical for me. To be part of staff room meetings, to be part of invigilations, to be part of science expos, and all of this was a very real experience for me in education. And I think I would probably one of the most important years I've done in my life is understanding how the education system works. And so then after that, I went and worked in an education company, one of South Africa's largest education companies, and I was a business analyst, and I kind of worked with IT systems. And then kind of this idea of coding and robotics just converged together. I just saw that maths was just continuously being a struggle. Kids didn't want to learn it. And also I felt very stuck. And so I was like, how do we create something that future-proofs kids, but more importantly, helps them connect the dots between what they're learning in school, but also how they can actually leverage that to work one day. Because currently students are kind of stuck in school, and school is like, sounds very harsh, but it's like purgatory. It's like, I just need to get through matric and then I can have fun. I can just get through matric and then I can live my life and do what I want and get into a degree. And I think that perspective could be so different if we kind of change the narrative, right? So coding and robotics kind of came in all together. It was just a perfect blend of my electronic engineering years, my passion for education, my teaching experience, my business analyst experience, and kind of fused it together to create something that worked out quite nicely. And so essentially what I do now is we have a company called Resolute, and we provide schools with coding and robotics programs. So we help schools implement coding and robotics programs to essentially prepare kids for the future.
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. I've been making notes here. I've been writing just some notes to myself about the importance of realizing that purpose so early on. That I think you just mentioned it. You mentioned it. Your why. That idea of wanting to help people, wanting to serve people. Maybe as a doctor, okay, that's not going to work out. Let's do something else. But finding a way there to embody that same purpose in a completely different industry for me is super interesting. And then also what you said about finding the overlap between all the different areas you've been involved with in life, learning the system, and then what I assume you're doing now at Resolute is just giving back to the world your own better version of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, I can echo to startup founders or anyone is like the why in you needs to be very strong. We kind of call it the true north. I think if you have a very strong true north of why you're doing what you're doing, it doesn't matter what the outlet is. When it kind of gets difficult and you don't know what to do, that true north always helps you, and you always kind of find a way to live a fulfilled life and also have that impact on the world. So the easiest way I say it is it's two circles. Do what the world needs and do what you love. And if you can find that perfect Venn diagram, I think you really find purpose in life.
So I'm also fascinated by what you said about helping kids that learn maths to connect the dots with what they're learning at school and what they're going to be doing at work potentially someday. And I deeply resonated with what you said when you said that you had to go study potentially something that your dad wanted you to go study. And so it was the exact same thing for me. So we all kind of ended up, those of us who had the privilege to go to university, ended up studying something that our parents probably thought was best, but ended up doing something completely different. And now you're trying to connect the dots for kids who think that what they're studying is completely irrelevant, but it might not be. Eventually in life might be super useful. So here's my question. For the world out there that thinks that formal education, tertiary education is irrelevant, useless, outdated, whether at school or at university, what would you say to them? How can we connect the dots with what we're learning in dusty old institutions with what's happening in the world in technology out there today? How do you do that for yourself even?
Yeah. I think I want to be very cautious in saying I'm very lucky that it worked out for me, that from where I came from. And I think anything I share is very much my point of view and not the complete answer to life, I guess. And so I
Of
think for
course.
me, fundamentally, what gave me that freedom is having that foundational tertiary education really gave me the confidence to go pursue what I wanted to in life. And I think maybe that's kind of an Indian mindset or a framework of my parents coming through is they kind of, Indian parents are very strict with you until you get to like university. And when you get a degree, they almost flip and they're like, you could do whatever you want because that foundation and that base is set. And so it's very weird, right? I think I'm so thankful for that because I think if I could have chosen my own thing and I probably did something else straight after university or try to figure out what my purpose in life or whatever, I think you kind of could end up wasting a lot of time and in doing so not figuring out and getting into something that might not be relevant. And I think one thing that's important that I want to highlight in this is having that base, I can't emphasize enough how much it gives you that confidence to use it as a foundational pillar to set to kind of step into what you want to do. And then, but when doing that base, not just being stuck in that, to try different things and to be creative. So like even when I was studying electronic engineering and such, I knew it wasn't my passion, but I loved every moment of it. I got involved in every possible sports thing I could. I got involved in tutoring. I got involved in your houses that they have in tertiary. I went out, I had fun, I did multiple things, and by being exposed to a diverse amount of things, I ended up finding what my thing was. So for kids who have the privilege and the luck and the opportunity maybe to get a tertiary education, is find something that you kind of want to do, but set yourself up to the base, because we think we don't have a lot of time in life, but you're 21, you have your degree, and life really starts then. I mean, you can even take your years of 21, 25, 26, 5, 6 years to go find yourself, but you always know that base is, and it gives you a lot of confidence, whether you go back into that space or not. It kind of sets you up to kind of live a life with that kind of level of confidence that you can, because you've achieved something already. After high school, you've achieved something yourself, and that in itself is a testament.
Yes, that makes 100% sense. Even though you might evolve, whether in your talent or your skill or just your worldview later on, and do something completely new, that remains the foundation. I love that. So let's switch gears a little bit. You mentioned a phrase just now, time in life, gives you time in life. You also mentioned the fact that you see yourself as quite an athlete, or not. But I know that you guys, I know that you're married. I know that you just added a little one to your family. I know you're an avid runner. I know you did a great job speaking at TEDx. And I know you run your own company along with a team, and you guys are doing well. But so here's my question. For those of us out there who have all these different interests, we all polymaths, everything is becoming increasingly interesting to us, but we have a finite amount of time. How do you manage this? How have you structured your passions, your interests, those things that you want to give your life to, so that you make sure you get your priorities straight and you get to the things that you want to do?
Yeah, sure. Very, very good question. Um, I think every phase in life, there's always, you look back at every phase in life, look back and said, oh my gosh, what was I doing with my time? And then you look forward and you're like, I could be doing so much more. And so the first thing is, like, I think your time starts to become valuable when your priorities start to line up. And then what happens is, indirectly, without you knowing, all the stuff that you wasted time on slowly starts to kind of weed away. So when I realized kind of right now, when your priorities line up, is you have a company, you have to run it, you have a wife and you have your family, and you want to keep physically fit. So you have these X amount of things that line up, and then the things that start to weed out, I ask myself that, like, listen, how did you manage to do all of these things in this time? And then I look back and be like, but actually, when I was 5 years ago, I used to quiz maybe 2 to 3 times a week. I was an avid quizzer before I got married. And I thought about that. I was like, that's like going to a restaurant and quizzing from 7 to 10 twice a week, which is 6 hours, which I haven't done in the past 2 to 3 years. So that kind of fell away. And there's a lot of things like that that just starts to clear out once your priorities come to light. So I would just pretty much say, I think you need to find what's important to you. And for me, it's always been, I really love doing things that make me happy. And so I'm just so lucky that I found a job that I don't see as a job. It's almost an extension of my life. So that it fits in. I want to have, I'm a very much a family person. I don't think I would sacrifice that for any amount of worldly success the world throws at me. So that's like a fundamental pillar for me, which is family. And then I just love being fit. I think growing up, I was quite a chubby kid, and I always wanted to be an athlete. So if you asked me, the doctor could have been a cliche answer, but my desire was to win Wimbledon or to be an athlete. And to be honest, still to this day, entrepreneurs don't inspire me. I don't look at like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and these people, and like I don't base my life on them, but athletes inspire me. Like I'll look at athletes and I'll get goosebumps, and their hard work really resonates with me. So for me, sports is something that's always been a priority. So once all of that lines up, the stuff that's not important starts to weed out, and you just find that you have time for all of these things.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, you just did a 21K over the weekend. Am I right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, congratulations on that as well. So, I mean, it is
Thank you.
easy to look at a life from a distance and see all the outside markings of success and things that are going well, especially in our 100% social media, Instagrammed kind of world that we live in. But of course, there was hardships and challenges and disappointments. And what have you experienced some of those? Do you care to mention some of those that influenced the person that you are now? And what did it take to go through some of those, or what is it still taking to go through some of those? What can you care to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, it's 99% of your life is in a positive way failing and feeling sad and figuring life out. And so what you sometimes display to the world, whether it's intentionally or not, or what people see, could be the 1% where you do really well, you know? And so for me, absolutely, I think there's been a um, one of the biggest things is like an imposter syndrome. Like, do you really belong where you are? Do you think you're the right person to be able to run your company? Are you confident enough in your decision making? Completely questioning yourself, and more than anything, like
Hmm.
I think as you grow in life, there's more challenges that you kind of ask. So there's one thing building a business, and now looking back, I thought that would be the most difficult thing. And now it's keeping the business sustainable and growing it is a completely different ballgame that I always thought like if I reached this level of whether it's revenue or employee account, I would be so happy. And I've hit that now. The worrying is even more escalated because then there's the next month and then the next month. And so absolutely, I think a lot of things that have shaped me in my life, and most people would say it is the failures and things that you look back and is the biggest learning experiences in your life. And that's been the same with me. I always say that if I'm not in my comfort zone and if I'm not failing, then I'm not doing something right. So for me, it's the biggest motivator and it's a biggest driver. And I think uh,
Hmm.
I challenge myself to be in the moment and to be incredibly content where I am, because I think it's so easy for me and also for most people, I think just to live in the future and to maybe know that that future will never be there. So just to be content and happy. And that's kind of been my focus right now is how do I live in the moment and enjoy it.
Yes. I like, I love what you're saying about our biggest learnings come from our failures. If we are able to look at those, gain those insights, and do better next time. So I deeply resonate with that. But here's a follow-up question. When it comes to learning, when it comes to being better, having so much, giving so much output, whether to your family or to friends or to business or colleagues or wherever else, how do you keep that pipe of fresh water flowing? What avenues have you built? What systems have you put in place for you yourself to stay inspired and up to date and feeling fresh? How do you keep learning? So here on this channel, we talk to creative people about lifelong learning, about continuous
Mm.
learning. But how do you do that for yourself?
I think this is where what we spoke about earlier is so critical is your why needs to be very strong, right? So if you
Mm,
if specifically speaking about me, if it's social impact, then it's you can't almost stop. And you if your true north is sound, you realize that there's a potential of growth specifically in South Africa and Africa that you have to try do. And I almost tell myself like there's so much more to do. You know, you're just kind of getting started. So to answer your question directly, is how do you keep refreshed? Is it's to have those outlets. It's to be able to spend
mm,
time with family, to have a sports outlet, to feel healthy, and I think that gives you that reset. But also, I think my personality in general is that, which is a good thing and a curse is. never be satisfied, to be more ambitious, and to try and do always more and to push the boundaries. I mean, I always tell myself it's wonderful what we've done, but Africa is going to have a youth population of 375 million youth, and which is going to be 50% of the world's college-bound population in the next 7 years. Which means in the next 7 years,
Sure.
if you take every 1 out of 2 graduates, is going to be from Africa. So just like how China has dominated the manufacturing space, Africa has a potential to dominate the labor force for the world. So when you look at the potential that's available and with the teacher shortages that's forecasted, your impact and what you want to do is just so vast that you can almost never achieve it. You can try your best to take a stab at it, and I think that's why that's something that you can just keep chasing in a positive light.
I 100% have. I understand that. It makes sense that the numbers that you are mentioning about the young people in Africa is staggering. That is insane. There's so much potential in our continent locked up, and it's mind blowing. So I think one last question from my side is, before we direct everybody to where they can get a hold of you and learn more from you and with you, is if you had to, I don't know, this might be a little bit of a cliched question, but if you had to travel back in time and meet yourself, or even when you spend time with younger entrepreneurs, younger creatives, younger people in the education and tech space, what's your advice to them? I mean, things are changing so quickly. But what if you had to inspire or help somebody along the way that's on your same journey, but a couple of steps behind you? What do you tell people? What is your advice to the world out there?
So twofold. I think to keep it quite simple, one is almost the theme of what we've been speaking about is if you can find out what you love doing and see if that really resonates with you, and find your why, find your true north. And I think that's such an incredible privilege that sets you up for life if you can find that at a young age. And it's not just a career, it's like deeply in your soul, like, what is your purpose for existence? Not to be doom and gloom, but like, why are you on this earth and what do you want to achieve? And I think if you kind of figure that out, you'd be surprised. There are hundreds of outlets that you can actually express that. And then the second thing for me is I posted recently on LinkedIn. Obama said this as well. It's like, just act, do something, take the first step, be proactive. So for me, when we have young interns or colleagues and people that work with us, is like the biggest characteristic that I absolutely love in people is people that solve problems for you, and people that just take initiative and go do things, right? And solve problems. So for me, when I'm speaking to a youngster or a startup or anyone, is once you found that purpose in life, like, just try something, like, go take the first step, get involved here, and you'll see how much your next puzzle piece starts to open up. I mean, we might never know the whole puzzle piece, but the more we start taking steps and putting it together, the clearer and clearer and clearer the picture becomes. So act, don't be stagnant, and also find your true north. Those are the two things that I could say would be critical.
Rajesh, that's good advice, not just for young up-and-coming people. It's good advice for myself as well, and I'm sure of it for everybody that's watching. So thanks so much. Thanks for sharing with us today. All the best of luck with Resolute and everything else that you're doing, whether it's running or raising kids, and being a stellar husband to your wife. I appreciate so much the time that you put in to be with us today. If you want to find out more about Rajesh, I can highly recommend to go to TEDx, either the TEDx Pretoria YouTube channel or the TEDx channel. Look him up and watch his talk. It's super inspiring, and I was riveted when I was listening to Rajesh, but also filled with nerves because I also had to go speak, and it was just such a nerve-wracking experience. But then also go and visit him on his LinkedIn profile and also on the Resolute.education website. But Rajesh, thank you so much. Thanks for laying it out on the table for us. I appreciate it.